Hello, everybody. This is Yasser Naim from Film Talks. Today's guest is Qatari filmmaker Hend Fahkroo. Hello, Hend, and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
I'm happy to have you here. And Hend has been one of the leading, uh, female voices in the film industry in Qatar. It's interesting because there are more women directors in Qatar than there are men.
That's
So what do
very
you say about that?
No, I think it's first of all, I think it's incredible because if you look like at the rest of the world, I think I read somewhere that the statistics are that there's only like 10 to 15% of directors are women. So I think we're like totally changing that, which is great. I think I'm probably the eldest one. there's a huge, there's a huge little like a generation gap because they started to sort of they introduced programs I believe at Northwestern and it's just become with the Doha Film Institute and got the guys at Innovation. It's just become more interesting and more accessible, and people are like, you know what, we love film. Maybe we can actually tell our own stories. So, and I think women are a lot more, I mean, this is biased, but women can explore their creativity. It's easier for them to explore their creativity in our culture than maybe it is for guys, but yeah. I could be wrong. But I think that's probably one of the factors.
I completely agree, actually. If you noticed, in our culture specifically, women are always the storytellers. They're actually better storytellers than men.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. Yeah.
Like if you remember, with our grandmothers and our mothers, back in the day, I mean, they always just keep telling us these stories about, for example, what was it? Al-Khadar wal-Leaf and Hmar, which is if you go out, at noon and play, outside, you're going to get attacked by this woman with the legs of
scary stories.
Yeah. Al-Khadar wal-Leaf, which is when we grew up, it was they just meant a palm tree, which, but it sounds scary for a kid. Yeah. So
yeah, of course. It's like you said, it's a very, I feel like matriarchal, it starts at home. And yeah.
And now it evolved to to film.
It did. I'm really happy that we have that in Qatar, that there are, I think that we have more filmmakers, like female filmmakers in Qatar, more than maybe anywhere else in the region, like the GCC maybe, which I think is great because there's so much support.
Yeah, I think so too. So tell us more about you. So how did you start your journey in filmmaking?
So I don't know if you know, but my father's Qatari, but my mom is Egyptian, and her side of the family, like my grandfather and my aunt, were Egyptian actors, and my grandfather was also a director, and so growing up, we didn't have what we have now in terms of being able to watch whatever. So my childhood was very much watching black and white films, Egyptian classical films, more than anything else really. And for me, that was my entertainment. And for me, having my family be in that was the most normal thing ever. Until I had a very difficult reality check when I moved. Finally, when I was much older, we moved to Qatar. And when I was going to graduate, my dad said, the only thing that you can do is work in Al Jazeera. This is back in 2000. And I said, well, that's not really what I wanted, So I ended up going off and studying marketing. And but I always had a camera around. I tried to take production classes. I did some theater in Texas. And then I came back and just kind of didn't do anything until I heard that I read somewhere that Robert De Niro and Sheikh Al Mayasa started the Doha Tribeca Film Festival, and that was super exciting. But again, I didn't really do much until in 2012. I had this idea to do his name, very small sort of. I was having a coffee at Starbucks here. I live in Bahrain at the moment, and I saw this guy in the parking lot who was washing the cars. You know, there are these guys who. And everybody who walked past, he was saying, he was doing his gesture and saying hi. And some people, they said hello back. And to other people, he was completely invisible. And I started to judge these people. And then I thought, I don't think I'm, much better than them, because I've had this friend who was a garbage collector in our neighborhood that I call him a friend because I spoke to him every day and almost, but I didn't know his name, which made me feel very hypocritical. So I decided that maybe this is something that I could explore. I wouldn't have been able to make this movie if it wasn't for the guys at Innovation, especially Hamad Al-Hamadi, Moal Ibrahim, and Ahmed Al-Bakr. Like, those guys really, encouraged it. We did it in 2 days, and it was so lovely and easy, and it was such a simple, beautiful, very low budget.
It was.
And I was very proud of it. I am very proud of it. Just as
it's
like
a beautiful film. Yeah.
Thank you. And then I just thought, you know what? Maybe I can actually. Maybe that's something that I can do. But I didn't do anything until 2016 with the waiting room.
With Filmhouse, right?
Life gets in the way. I did do that with the Filmhouse, yes. It
amazing,
actually started off with, they're can't
fantastic.
say enough amazing things about all of them. The crew, and especially Justin is super supportive of all of the young filmmakers. He just wants to make all his movies, and he just wants to make them, and his team is incredible. So the process of writing The Waiting Room was interesting because it's based on 2 true stories, which I don't know if you know.
No, I don't.
My best friend Patricia, who's also in the movie, we've been friends for a very long time, and we noticed that every time we get together, we talk about, like, my dad is sick, or her mom is sick, or and so we ended up taking 2 situations that actually did happen, but then fictionalizing the friendship between the 2 families in this hospital. So we did The Waiting Room in 2016. It was a great experience. Everybody was like super into it. And I think it did
very well in festivals.
It did very well in festivals. It was controversial. I'm gonna get that out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, that's what films are about. Like, they make you think. If a movie's not controversial, then it's like, a popcorn movie.
Exactly. And popcorn movies have their audience and all that. And it was a risk, and a lot of thought went into the smoking scenes, which are very, very long, because and they are very long for a particular reason. Like, those were the moments where, in my personal experience, when my father was in the hospital, those were the only moments I had that were quiet. Like, there was nothing happening. And I kind of wanted to give that feeling to the audience, like almost to the point where I waited until it became awkward, and then I
it did. It did. Like, that moments it did.
Yeah. And the smoking scenes were also controversial because, I went on screen and I smoked the cigarettes, and which is what we did, and how you bond with people in a lot of hospitals. And that was not very well received, but it's the truth.
It is.
A lot of I'm not encouraging it, but there are a lot of things that women do, and someone is going to have to put it in a movie at some point and tell the story truthfully at some point.
I mean, especially like, in our cultures, I think sometimes they like to sweep stuff, like under the carpet. Oh, this stuff doesn't happen. Like, people don't do this here, but it actually does. I mean, if it doesn't, then we're not humans.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
like, I really wanted to be authentic, and I really wanted to be fair to the characters,
Hmm.
all of them. And I think I did that. Awkwardness
Yeah.
and everything included. Yeah.
But it worked. It worked well for the film and the characters because, um, and I think it's a very gutsy move. And like, you should keep doing risky stuff like that because in film, I mean, if we don't push the status quo, then what are we doing?
Exactly. And we're again, like I said, we're not being authentic or
Yeah.
truthful. We're not telling the whole story, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's like there was this, what is it, Qatari soap opera that was like back in early 2000s or like in the 90s, like end of the 90s, early 2000s. It had a lesbian character, and people were like went off the roof. They was like, no, this doesn't happen in our society. It's like, no, it does, and we have to talk about these issues, and these things happen. What are you going to do if this happens? Like, um, I remember I had a conversation with one of my friends, and he said, well, if we don't make films about you know um, probably like LGBT community or like some of the other things that happen in society, how will people react to them if they happen in their family? Because we what he said was very interesting to me because he said um, we basically judge situations based on past experiences, and if you don't have a reference to that experience, what are you going to do?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, you find the movies that you watch and you love
Mm-hmm.
and you connect with, it's because you've connected on a personal level with something or an experience, or with a character, or there's something in it that has moved you. And I think
Yeah.
that for that personally, and for a lot of the filmmakers in Qatar, the young ones,
Mm-hmm.
that's something that we want.
Yeah.
Or else then there's really no point of doing this. We're not doing it for fame or for a ton of money, because
Yeah.
none of that comes with it. We're doing it to really tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the movie that the one that we're actually supposed to be shooting now as it's also
the
gutsy because
the feature
it's
film, right?
yeah, the feature film is called Behind Closed Doors,
Mm-hmm.
and it is very much about what happens in a marriage. I don't want to give too much away, but it is about women's rights.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a little bit of domestic abuse, and what options do we have? Like, do women have if they find themselves in a situation like that? But yeah, so that's gonna be interesting as well.
That's going to be very interesting. I can't wait to see it. And I know one of the actresses on the movie is Sahar Hussein.
Yes, the
Yeah.
amazing Sahara. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
tell us more about like your experience with her.
So I ended up messaging her on Instagram because I didn't know how else to do it. So I messaged her on Instagram and she replied. We had a nice phone conversation. She's lovely, and I sent her the script. And this is her first experience in a film, like acting in a movie. Usually she's done so much television and series, and her sister are very well respected, their entire family. Um, but it was very much, we shot 8 scenes in February, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't shoot them for the film. I shot them as sort of like a test to see chemistry, uh, the tone of the film, what we really wanted to do. And also to show people, it's really easy for you to read a script and for it to come into your mind as whatever you imagine it to be. But if you actually have like a couple of scenes or a few minutes of something, then you're more likely to maybe get some money from people who
Yeah.
are interested in seeing it. Maybe more people believe and want to get on board, and maybe they don't, you
Yeah.
know. But with Sahar, she was like on top of it. She was super professional. We had great conversations about the character. She knew exactly who I was talking about. Again, I don't want to give too much away,
Yeah.
but she was, I believe, meant to do this part. And you know, we don't have a lot of experienced actors in Qatar, and there is a lot of work that has to go into having a conversation with what exactly you want them to do. And that is, it's more difficult for us in Qatar. I'm just going to be talking about that.
Yeah.
But I think at some point I sort of have to let go of this idea that we have to be like the West in terms of acting, and just sort of do what feels right for us and what feels right for our audience. But I'm going on all these tangents, but
No,
because
that's a beautiful,
and
what you said is beautiful, actually, because in a previous episode with Salman Mehannadi, we were talking about some of the short films that we have done, and some of the short films that our friends have done here haven't had, like, you know, a very well reception in the Qatari audience. And I think it was because of what you just said, is like, you know, we want to copy the West and, like, you know, American films so much that we forgot how to talk to our audience in a language, or, like, you know, in a visual language that they understand. So do you actually agree with that?
I didn't, if you had asked me this question like 8 months ago, I would disagree. But after the experience I had with shooting those scenes, I completely agree. Because I had this conversation during Qumra with a Brazilian filmmaker. His name is Karim Ainus, and his movies are incredible. And he had seen some of the work, and he said, you know, there's a discrepancy between some actors and some actors. You can't have two different movies in one film. You're either going for it or you're not, or you're going for something else. Like, you kind of got to choose. And that's why I'm so thankful that COVID kind of came in, so I could just take a step back and think of really what I wanted to do. And he loved the character of Sahar Hussein, and he said, you know, if that is, and that is very much a reflection of women in our culture, which a lot of people that were not Khaliji, their feedback to me was, we're not sure if this is really believable. So I had to kind of think, who am I making this for? You know, am I making it for us, like for people like in our region, or Arabs or Qataris or whatever, who can watch it and say, okay, I recognize myself in this? Or am I making it for, you know,
a Western audience?
A Western audience, yeah. It's a very difficult thing, I think, for a young filmmaker without very much experience like myself, to kind of try and figure out, to kind of find your voice.
Yeah, especially, like, I mean, we don't really have a film industry here, so we don't really have, you know, that lineage of films and, like, you know, styles and visual styles of films. I had a conversation like a few weeks back. I don't know if you know, with a producer here, Mary Bug, and we reached an agreement on, like, there is no Qatari film look or, like, film style. The only closest thing that anybody has gotten to a Qatari, you know, owned, or, like, you know, made in Qatar, like, film style, is probably Film House with Chris Moon and Justin, because every other film you see in, like, you know, in probably, like, you know, in festivals here in Qatar, they just look like other Western films.
Yes,
and
I think that again, like, going back to this whole, like, inexperience, it is a conversation that you have to have with everyone. Like, I really enjoy working with the Film House because, and especially Chris Moon, because I don't know, I feel like visually we are on
the same page.
The same page, yeah. Like when we were making The Waiting Room, we had to exchange pictures. Basically, we took a bunch of stills. He took a bunch of stills and sent them to me of what he thought, and I did the same. And one of those stills was exactly the same. So it was
Wow.
just kind of like, oh, perfect. You know, then
Yeah.
then we're not going to have an issue
Yeah.
agreeing on stuff. Same thing with this movie. You know, I mean, I think he maybe finds it, the language barrier is a bit of a thing,
Mm-hmm.
but again, it's about the chemistry of the people that you're working with. You have to really trust the team around you to be honest, because people like to what's the word? I don't want to say something, you know, people like to not kiss your ass, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh man, that's so amazing. And you're like, but is it? Like, I really
Yeah.
need like proper feedback.
Yeah.
I'm working with you because you're a group that I trust, and I hope that we're all open
Yeah.
and
And you're gonna tell me when I'm doing something wrong.
exactly.
Yeah.
Or if something is not working, or you know, like there was the waiting room had a totally different ending, and one of our very good friends, her name's Alex Fredericks, she's one of the executive producers. She said that ending was super sentimental to the point where it wasn't real to the characters.
Oh
And as
wow.
soon as she said that, I was like, you know what, you're right. Absolutely, those characters would not say goodbye that way,
Yeah.
and that's why it had a different ending. So again, it's a conversation, and it's about who you surround yourself with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about like, you know, teamwork. Like, you know, when you work on a film, I know like, you know, it's the director's film and the writer's film. But then like the director, like you said, they want, you know, actual real comments about, you know, how the film is, it working or is it not? Does it look
Yeah.
good? Or, you know, sometimes you want those, not, I'm not going to say negative feedback, but like, you know, realistic.
Constructive,
Yeah.
constructive criticism.
Constructive. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to be open to that. I think as a like, you can't have your feelings get hurt. You have to keep an open mind,
Yeah.
because everybody who's on this project wants it to work. I feel like, in my experience anyway.
Yeah, I mean that
Yeah.
definitely. So going back to working with like a more experienced actress like Sahar Hussein, um, a lot of directors here that I've talked to, they said they always had issues with actors because actors here they just want to be told what to do. And so what is it that you like to do? Do you like to just have an actor that you just you know, tell them I want you to do one, two, and three, A, B, and C, and say this in this certain way, or do you want like an actor to come and tell you, you know, something about
Uh,
the character itself?
Again, this is like probably my the line I've said the most in
Hmm.
during our interview. It's a conversation.
Yeah.
Sahar Hussein has an incredible amount of experience, um, and she was able to bring in so much, not just into her character, but also to other people's characters. Like I said, I didn't grow up in Qatar, so there are things that I won't be able to maybe portray in a very truthful way, or in a way that someone can connect with, that she was able to help with, maybe giving some feedback. And then in the end, of course, it was, you know, my final decision of whether we should go. We tried so many different things, and sometimes it was, you know, what her idea was, and then you know, you go in and you say, well, how about we try it this way? But that's what I'm saying
Mhm.
is I don't like it, you know, when someone comes in and says, what do I do? I kind of feel like if that's hit, then you're not really in character.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really understand the character, and you don't really, um, I don't, it's just not going to be
Yeah.
genuine.
Yeah. They're not in it for the movie. They're just in it for the money or like, you know, or whatever.
Or just to be, to
Yeah.
be on screen, which is, you know,
Yeah. Which
yeah.
so this is like that always gives me like a negative vibe when like someone on set is like not really in the movie. They're like, you know, either like they're like on the in a corner smoking, or like, you know, they're like, you know, talking on the phone or like playing. It's just very rude, I think, and very disrespectful to, you know, everybody else on set because
And it's
they're
a
there to
culture
make it
thing.
work. Yeah.
Culture thing. Like, I remember when one of the scenes we were filming with Sahar Hussein, I was sitting next to her while everybody was setting up, and she was just kind of, you know, she was observing everyone, and she
Mhm.
said, it is so different to work. You know, she looked at everyone and said, they're really into their work. Like, they are people who you can tell love what they do. They're not shouting. They're not, like everybody has a way of, it's very zen. Like, thank God, like, the projects that I've worked on so far have had a very nice um, group of people.
Family vibe, yeah.
Very family vibe. And people, they love what they do. If you don't love what you do, then you're going to be off, like you said, smoking a cigarette or not really like into it. Like you're,
Yeah.
and you know how long it takes to shoot stuff. Like
Oh yeah.
16, 18 hours, depending, like just to set up one shot.
Yeah.
So if you're not into it, get out. Like, nobody
Just
needs.
leave. Yeah.
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 So, I mean, I think you're like probably the first of like the like I'm gonna say like the new generation of filmmakers that actually reached out to like an old actor like or actress, and I think there's like been this gap between um, like our generation of filmmakers and like the old generation of like people that worked on Qatari soap operas especially, and people have been like hesitant to like work with people from that like not like I mean that group, and because of like, oh, we don't like the theatrical acting style that they have, or like for example they have like this very
Yeah.
TV direction that they do, or like basically, and sometimes there has
And
been
they
this.
do, and they
Yeah.
do because there's no, yeah, they do, because there's no
Yeah.
nobody made films before. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
like, I'll tell you, like my first experience with something like that was with In the Waiting Room, the
Mhm.
actor who played my dad. His name is Abdul Wahid,
Mhm.
who's amazing, is an amazing person, is amazing. Um, the things that that I wanted to do was I didn't give him a script, because if he had a script, I knew it was going to be very um,
Robotic.
there was a chance of it being
Yeah.
overacted, and
Yeah.
like, because that's has always been his experience, whether it's TV or theater. So what we did was we actually, when before every scene started, he knew what the movie was about and what the scene was about, but the actual dialogue we discussed right before, like while we were setting up the shot. And we had this way of communicating with each other where there's one scene where I'm crying, and we're having this very like emotional conversation, and I was actually holding his hand and pressing on his like thumb when it was his
Mhm.
turn to talk, because
Yeah.
it was not rehearsed. It was just very like in the moment, and I think he did an incredible job.
Wow.
And like Tahar Hussein, who's amazing, and she's done an incredible job. And I'm really looking
Yeah.
forward to actually finishing this movie with her, because she takes it to another level. And you have to have respect for that, whether it's something that you're used to as a you have to respect that there is a history when it comes to television
Yeah.
and theater. Um, and not all the movies we have to make have to resemble like Egypt or Lebanon
Yeah.
or even the States or whatever. We're the ones who have this opportunity to do it ourselves,
Yeah.
just to shape it, to create it. So we'll see. Hopefully, we'll do something good.
So, what are your plans for the feature film? Like, is it going to festivals? Is it go to theatrical release? Because I'd love to see that a Qatari
Um,
film going to a theatrical release.
I think that would be like ultimately amazing and incredible. The film is a festival film, like that's what we're going to try and start to do, because there is a thirst for stories
Mm-hmm.
from our side of the, like when I first started traveling and attending and having like going to all these festivals and having conversations with producers or programmers. um, there is a huge gap. People don't know how we live day to day. Like there's like this like stereotype, which I'm
Yeah.
not even going to get into, but
Camels and
people would
tents.
love to know,
Yeah.
people would love to know what a Qatari family's daily life is like, because they don't know. We don't
Yeah.
know. Um, and so there is an interest. So that's why I would like to see how it does festival wise. And then hopefully there's enough interest locally for it to get a theatrical release. And
I hope so. Yeah.
yeah, I
I'd
hope
love to
so.
see it. Yeah.
I'd
Because
love to.
uh, I mean, that will open up doors for like every other filmmaker. It's like, oh, we can actually monetize our films instead of just spending money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
And that
and it
creates an industry.
yeah, and it is a low budget film. It's not a. I think that one of the things that I learned from like watching all of these interviews with amazing, famous, successful directors is that you got to put in the work first. Like you make these short films and you make your mistakes, and you invest in it. You're like, a lot of us pay from our own pockets
Hmm.
for part of our movies. And we're lucky to have grants available also, like from the Doha Film Institute for that kind of stuff. But you make all of this in order for you to be able to make the amazing stuff, to be able to convince people to give you $2 million, $4 million to make your movie that you want to make.
Yeah.
This movie that we're making is $200,000 or $300,000, and
Wow.
that's a very low budget film,
It is.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um, and then we'll see. We go from there.
So, what are your plans after that? So, do you have any other film that you're working on like right now?
Oh, I have so many scripts. Yes, and I write a lot. I read a lot and I write a lot. I have so many stories that I want to tell. But like I said, it takes a really long time to be
Yeah.
able to write something good. I have been co-writing a film, an American film.
Hmm.
I can't say too much information about it. So, but that has been an incredible experience just to kind of see how things are done in the States. In the States, it's a
Yeah.
totally different model, like, with investors and like, the way that they raise the money and who they're going to bring in as actors. So I've been working with writing with the director and working with American producers, and it's a totally different.
Wow.
And it's nice to know. It's nice to
Yeah.
see, so sort of see the difference between the two. Um, but yeah, so that's something else that I've been working on. I think they're going to start shooting it hopefully soon. We don't know with
So,
this COVID.
yeah. Well, that's definitely something that's amazing, and I really can't wait to see that as well. And I really can't wait to see also your feature film that you're filming right now. And I mean, I I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I love your style of storytelling. It's just very touching and very emotional, and really like talks about the human condition instead of just like a big spectacle. And I love it, and I can't wait to see more of your work. And again, Hen, thank you so much um, for being on this show. This was an amazing chat. I mean, I've learned a
Thank
lot
you.
just by talking with you.
Thank you for having me. And I
Oh, the
think that what you're
pleasure is all mine.
no, really, I think what you're doing is awesome, and I love that we all want each other to succeed, and we all support each other, which is
Yes.
a nice thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and thank you so much. And I really,
Thank you.
really can't wait until I see you with your first Oscar.
Oh wow! Thank you so much. A girl can dream, man. I
Yeah.
can dream.
Yeah, and we will be rooting for you. I mean, we will definitely be rooting for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Esther. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.